I believe we're on the cusp of something really important when it comes to citizen power and citizen participation. That young people all over the world, particularly in countries like India or even China, want to participate in civic life. And the technology now makes it so much easier than ever before for them to be active citizens, to generate information, to hold governments to account.
I have the impression that the balance of power is changing and shifting quite rapidly, and at the same time lots of developments are happening really fast, like technological developments and other developments. So it's really interesting to see what that means for organized civil society and how citizens can become or continue to be engaged in topics that also concern them.
More and more countries around the world are, at least on paper, democracies. So there are some elections, there are some rights to political participation. And I think we're seeing, unlike in mature democracies, where sadly young people especially are not interested in politics, in countries like Turkey and Brazil and India, we're seeing people thirsty for democratic participation.
In almost every country around the world, at the bottom level, there is interaction between grassroots organization and the government, which is also something that I recognize because every government in the world is seeking for legitimacy and to deliver to its population, regardless of the form of government that it actually has. But it becomes more difficult when there is organized critique to the government and to modes of government, and that's where often the space for civil society is becoming reduced.
So I think one really worrying trend is that despite making commitments to protect civil society, many countries that are around the world are actually restricting civic space and the ability of civil society to function. In some countries, we're seeing restrictions on foreign funding. So if a non-governmental organization receives money from abroad, they're either not allowed to take part in human rights or political activities, or they have to register under special laws. So I think we have a real, an urgent responsibility to protect civic space, to fight for the right of people all over the world to exercise their civic freedoms, to organize, to speak out, to mobilize. We have to positively invest in the conditions to allow local civil society in many developing countries to flourish. We've already seen some donors saying that they're going to fund more directly in countries. We're also seeing the emergence of new donors on the scene who aren't necessarily interested in funding the Dutch-based or the British-based NGO to deliver development, but are quite happy to go directly to Africa or Latin America and promote development there.
You see it particularly in urban areas because people actually see the differences between the rich and the poor. So my research was various examples of people really stating, poor people stating, why is it so that my neighbor has good access to services and we don't? Are we second-class citizens? So people start asking questions, and they also have the means to mobilize within those urban environments.
One of the things I'm most excited about is the power of new technologies. You can really engage and mobilize in quick, almost instant ways. And we've seen that in Iran, in Egypt, in Brazil, where spontaneous mobilization has happened. But also, we shouldn't forget the role of technology to promote accountability. Initiatives like iPaidAbribe.com in India allow citizens to report when they've been asked for a bribe. This is people-powered accountability at work, using technology to get information about what's happening in development in ways that were unimaginable even a few years ago.
Danny was actually promoting the idea of there are new opportunities because of new connectivity and new technologies, and we can do data monitoring in areas where we've never had data before. So this can also be used for a benefit. So maybe people go home and rethink it and try to find what actually can benefit them and what can't.
Another priority is to democratize the international arena. We have institutions at the international stage that were built in the 1940s and 1950s that are out of date with what people want in terms of accountability and democratic participation. One of my aims is to create the conditions, whether it's in Rwanda or Brazil, in Ethiopia or Turkey, to allow these people to fulfill their potential. Because in too many cases, governments make these paper commitments to protecting democracy or protecting civil society. We need a radical overhaul of these institutions to make them more accountable to citizens all around the world.